Hey, Halen, well met. Welcome to the pre-show for the Dungeon Scrawlers episode. We just had a good conversation about writing and how you motivate yourself to write. Certain people use software that deletes things if they don't write them long enough, and it is wild. So anyway.
Well, there's always that thing where they're like, just keep going, like get in the flow and keep going and don't stop and second guess yourself and all of that. What better way to do that than the threat of losing all your hard work? Some of us just don't have very high willpower.
Low wisdom? Is that what that is?
I don't know. I don't remember.
There was
meant in everyday life, not necessarily in a game.
Did you see that SNL commercial on the recent episode of Peloton? It's like for Peloton, but it's like we realize that positive motivation doesn't work for everyone. So it's like a lot of like taunting you and mocking you and like indifference and like trainers talking about, whispering about you just out of like, what are you saying about me? What are you saying about me?
Wow.
Yeah. That's too big a stick.
Wow. It's got to be kind of a soft, manageable stick, not a really hard, like emotionally damaging stick.
Like a Nerf stick.
Yeah.
It's like a LARPing weapon.
Like a pool noodle.
I mean, there's a time and place for a large hard stick, but not necessarily one.
It would be great if you had software that would just like poke you with a pool noodle every so often. Just, you still there? You still there?
See, like that was the gentlest version of this, right? Was that if you stopped, a little window would pop up and be like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be writing?" Like that's more, manageable, less terrifying. There's also, it had a typewriter mode where you couldn't backspace, like so you just had to keep moving forward. Led to some interesting typos on my part, but
could you program it to be Stephen King's face? He just appears and like scowls at you. He's like,
"Oh my god."
I've been reading this week. I binge read a huge chunk of the fourth Gunslinger book by Stephen King. It's really good. I've been really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying his. He pulled some cheap tricks though, like this one thing where
he wants you to love him.
We really got to find out this one thing. And so this one character goes and finds out from this old man, and the old man leans forward and whispers it into the character's ear. So we don't get to hear it. I'm like, what the? Okay. But then next chapter, surely he's going to go and tell his boss, the main character, what's going on. And he goes and tells the main character and whispers it into his ear. But it kept me turning the pages. But as that was going on, I was just thinking, you punk, this is the cheapest trick.
That is kind of a cruel trick.
What's tricky about that? I don't know. I have not read through the Dark Tower series. I don't know if you'll ever find out. Because there's like a balancing point, right? The more you hold back a secret, the better that secret better be when it comes out. Because otherwise you're like, what was that? Well, and at some point you almost can't reveal it. Like, no, there's nothing. So you never get to know. The secret is whatever you believe it to be.
Yeah.
That's a tricky move to pull off too.
That's for sure.
But I feel like at some point, like you can't meet the level that you've risen to by withholding.
Oh man, yeah, you can't overpromise. That would be so hard. But I was kind of pleased by continually withholding it, but also giving clues. I think I figured it out. And if I did successfully figure it out, that will make me very happy. And I will forgive him everything. But I stayed up late a couple nights just reading, just powering through that. Not solely because of that one fact I wanted, but but because he would do that on several levels. So it would be like, oh, what's going to happen with that? Ooh, that's getting worse. Oh man, they're screwed. It's cool.
Nice.
Okay, I think I'm officially done updating all the stuff. Excellent. So, what are we talking about, huh? What's the topic of the day? I'm really good at tuning out other people around me. That's why I work really well at coffee shops.
Yeah.
I miss coffee shops.
Yeah, me too. There's something just about that low-level background like just the activity, I think kind of like blends to energy. Also, I feel weirdly to like kind of to Aaron's point, I feel weirdly sort of like people are like, I need to be writing. I can't just be like screwing around. Like if I'm here,
Quit
I'm
screwing
visible.
around.
People can see what you're doing.
People can
Even if
see
they're
what
not
I'm
looking
doing.
closely.
If
They
I'm going
know
to be a
you were
writer in a
writing,
writer's
and now
room,
you're
yeah.
dicking around on Reddit. So
Yeah, exactly.
Strangers judging
that-
you.
that
Oh,
low
no.
level like social pressure.
Yeah.
I-
Also,
I-
obviously, the constant infusion of caffeine doesn't hurt, but still.
Pastry.
It's also low level human connection. It's kind of the illusion of connection, but you can convince yourself that by being around other people, you're with other people.
I
You
love when I
know-
see someone else writing
The
a book
humans.
at a
Yeah.
coffee shop. Like, yes, sister, you're in this too.
I have made friends at coffee shops just because I've hung around the same coffee shop consistently enough over the course of the year that like you kind of see the same like half a dozen faces, and over time you just start talking to each other and you become friends and you hold each other's seats when you go to the restroom or watch each other's computers. So there is that level of like social interaction that I dig.
Yeah, the coffee shop I started going to, we went with you a couple of times, I think. Looking Glass. They before the pandemic, I have all these atheist stickers and stuff on my laptop. So that occasionally, and it's like a major meeting for church groups in there. So I would have people either give me the odd look or the condescending smile, but sometimes they'd come over and talk to me. And one was this really, really nice old guy who was like, he was like a foreign policy advisor to like a bunch of presidents and other stuff. Like, I'm like, what? And he was in, telling me all these stories about the war, the Korean War and these other things. And then he went off. He had this like kind of conscious moment, this epiphany, and he went off. I think it was France, I want to say, or Italy, ended up wandering the countryside, stumbled across a monastery, joined, basically became a shepherd, priest, like monk out in the countryside.
That's awesome.
And then so he spends half his time there and then half the time here.
Randy.
Anyway, like all of these amazing stories, right? And just from this one guy. And it was like,
That's what I tell everybody I meet at coffee shops also. They're like, what do
Yeah.
you do? I'm like, well, let me tell you. Have you heard of Obama? I was Obama's advisor. I was also the advisor to the Dalai Lama. Have you heard of God?
Yeah.
We're close. We're buddies. We're tight.
I mean, there are people you can tell, like when they start spinning those tales, that they're sort of like, okay, this is your okay, you're making up stuff here, but like, no, he's sincere. Like when we did Wizards of the Coast, Writers of the Future, same syllables, right? Wizards of the Coast, Writers of the Future. But they have a 24-hour story contest. Stephen can attest to this, and where you basically have 24 hours to write a story. That you have to pick one book from a library. You have to pick one random item, and then you have to go out and you interview a bunch of people. They make you go out in the street and interview people, just random people on the street, and talk to them. And they film the whole thing too, which is fun.
Oh my god!
So it's makes
like
it. They're
the third circle of hell for me.
right. They're like standing. They're kind of just standing
on
back.
people. Is that available?
Yeah, and they try to make it seem like, oh, it's like that whole, we're not filming you, but then they're kind of over in the distance, and it's obvious that they're filming you. Anyway, but yeah. And it was on Hollywood Boulevard. So you can imagine, and you're not allowed to talk to like the costume characters or anyone who's really obviously like, but you try to find like average people. So, but some of the people I talked to, man, you could tell they were just telling like this guy. Anyway, there are people when you talk to them, you can tell that they're just building lie upon lie upon lie upon lie, right? This person he'd followed some famous basketball player to Los Angeles, and then got a job writing for the Chappelle Show, but then he started writing his own television shows, and then anyway, it then just escalated from there, and it got really, really weird. And he was like started ranting about all of the the young ladies walking around just texting and they don't like communicate anymore. And anyway, and I've rambled. I've lost the thread of this. I'm like, this is lost. This is no longer interesting. I'm sorry. But it's just,
I was making a sigh about the guy saying texting other people is like not communicating. I find this whole argument that like people being on their phones is the death of society. And it's like, why are you on your phone? Often it's to connect with other human beings. So why is that the death of society? This is just new technology that allows us to connect to each other. So I don't know. That's what I'm like, oh, I'm glad I wasn't there because I would have yelled a lot. So I would have been like, whatever.
You know, I feel really old even like phrasing it like this, but when I talk to young people these days, I find that they,
I'm sorry, Yang. I think we've done this to you.
When I talk to young people these days.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I find that they actually have like really rich internal voices and they have like a lot of thought and, you know, things going on inside. They just don't really express it outward as much, but in their chat rooms and in their heads, you know, there's a lot going on. I think they're maybe more involved, informed, and connected than ever.
Yeah. So shizzle.
If you are a young person, no.
If you are a young person.
Yeah, the young people in our chat.
Yeah, the young people.
Hello, fellow kids.
You are the next generation of D&D. Let us know.
You know, as long as we're talking about the youths.
They even know what all your base that belong to us means.
When people complain about like, oh, well, Generation Z says side parts and skinny jeans aren't cool. And I don't know, this was all over briefly. And I was like, why do I care? Right? Like I used to care what was in fashion. Now I care what I like. And a teenager telling me I'm not cool is just the natural order of things. They shouldn't think I'm cool. They're going through their own thing and figuring out who they are. I don't know. Generation Z may all be in their 30s by now. I have no idea. But the idea that like that somehow Generation Z looking at a millennial and going, oh my God, you're so old. Like, yeah, I am. That's exactly how this works.
That's
and
the point.
Don't care if you think my jeans are lame. That's fine.
Unfortunately, kids, that's how time works.
Well, and also like I had some jeans conversation on Twitter the other day, and it was one of those like that you get for a lot of things, like skinny jeans versus non-skinny jeans, or high rise versus low rise, or whatever. As far as like somebody saying, oh, it's the devil, leave, gone, hate it. And then somebody else saying, well, it's the only like fashion that fits my body type. So only that forever. And I always feel like, why not both? Like the fashion gods tell us that we cannot have like different rises of jeans at the same time, mostly. But why not? Why can't we have some that are one rise and some that are another rise, and then you pick the one that suits your shape?
Really, we shouldn't be getting intergenerational warfare. We should be all turning on the fashion industry. Stop selling us crap.
Yes, that's right. We should attack upwards, not horizontally or downward. Exactly.
Also, this is just such like, I feel like this is an important part of like building your identity, right? Like saying, okay, well, I'm not, you know, this older generation. I'm not my parents, right? I don't think millennials are Gen Z parents, but still, I don't understand generations. But that point where you're like, you know what? My mom does this thing and I don't want to do that thing because I'm my own person is like such an important step of developing your identity. I don't know why you would get head up about it, but I guess that gets people to click on articles, so.
Yeah. You know, I'll admit, like when I do read those articles and then they say like, Gen Xers are this, Gen Zers are this, Boomers are that. Like when it's not my generation, I'm like, oh yeah. But then when I read it and it's me, I'm like, no, this isn't me at all. But the other groups, yeah, totally.
Well, and they moved because I was for a while not a millennial, but then now, as it sort of settled out, I am. So at that point, I'm like, well, it can't be true because like I've been moving around. So
maybe these are arbitrary lines we've drawn that don't actually mean anything.
I think most of what I see online is that millennials are like early 80s to like early 90s is when you were born, or even late 90s. And millennials are marked by a mixture of growing up with technology and not.
Oh my
So-
God. You guys, can I tell you a banana story about my son?
Mm-hmm.
He's picked up the phrase "in olden times."
Oh,
Which
nice.
Originally, I believe I used at some point to explain like politics in the 1800s or something. And he has picked it up to mean before. So the other day, we were doing a puzzle and there was like matching pictures. And there's this little boy listening to the radio and it says, "No school today," and it's snowing and he's cheering. And he goes, "In olden times, did you have to listen to the radio to find out if your school was closed?" Let this back for a second.
Wow.
He goes, "In olden times, do you think that people had to unlock their car by putting a key in the door like you do for a house?"
Wow. That's
What
amazing.
is this? We've been having an issue because like he wants to chat with his friends and like hang out and they play like these like IO games and Roblox and stuff. But in order to set that up, he has to come to me with my cell phone and I text the other parents and then they coordinate, right? They can't actually like call each other on the phone because nobody has a landline anymore. Like, so where you, like when we were kids, when I was a kid, I would call up my friend Brooke and be like, "Hey," her mom would pick up and be like, "Hey, is Brooke there?" And she'd be like, "No, sorry, she's at soccer practice," or "Yeah, here she is." And then we just, I don't know, talk about boy bands or something. And like, that's not there. Like the parents are suddenly in the middle of this and it's not fun. I don't like having this social responsibility. My social responsibility is already hard. So yeah, I will look forward to more in olden times questions.
Yeah, you sort of just reminded me that like back in the day, in olden times, I used to call my friends on three-way telephone calls, and we used to have these big like telephone trees. Where,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was really difficult to like get like 6 people in a call or 5 people in a call, and if any one person dropped, suddenly you might get like 2 or 3 people dropping.
Right. Break the chain. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's so easy. They could just like hop into a Zoom call or something.
Right?
I
In
don't think I ever did do a 3-way call. But then like I did call my friends, but I wasn't like a big talker on the phone. So
in olden times, we had to remember people's phone numbers.
Oh my God.
I was really good. Like I'm
Yeah.
good at memorizing numbers. I had a lot of them memorized.
Isn't that crazy? Like now I think I could tell you my phone number and my husband's phone number. And after that, no, none of it.
Yeah.
I don't know my mother's phone number or my sister's. Don't know my best friend's phone number. It's
I
on
only-
the favorites list. Why would I have to remember this?
I only know
Still do
my
my library
mother's
card, though.
phone number because
I do that
that's the Safeway Club number. Otherwise, it's just my number and my wife's number, and that's basically it. I think if I really tried really hard, I could remember my dad's phone number.
I do remember my childhood phone number still, but it like rhymed or something.
Yeah, I think
Someone.
I do as well. But
Yeah.
when I was a kid, we actually changed area code,
We had that too.
which was
Oh, yeah.
bizarre. And it happened when I was like 12 or 13, and we just all of a sudden changed from the 916 to the 707 area code. And I was like,
And did you suddenly like there was a time where like you had 7 numbers. You only had to type the 7 numbers unless you were gonna call long distance because the whole
Right.
state was ours was 314 to 636. And then all of a sudden my number wasn't 9477194. It was 636-9477194. I was like, this is a lot longer. And now that's everything, right? But
Aaron,
it doesn't
you-
matter. It's all in your phone.
You realize by saying that number, somebody out there in the internet world is gonna dial that number right now and see who picks up.
Yep. Go bother someone in St. Charles, Missouri. They don't have anything else going on right now.
You got to do it 555 like the fake TV.
tell him that Aaron sent you.
That's
Like
right.
this is the thing. Like I could not say the number, but the number's not attached to me, so you're not gonna get anything interesting out of it. I haven't lived there for mumble years, and so like they don't know me. I'm sure that house has gone through multiple owners at this point, and yeah, if you're the kind of person who hears a random number on the internet and goes, I'm going to call that number, you're probably also the kind of person who just like dials random numbers. I don't know. I don't know why you would do that.
Well,
I'm not following the motivation chain here.
TV shows are like serious business about it, though. Like the detective shows where they're like, we took their phone records, and they're like showing the camera that there's like two phone calls to the mistress in the same day or whatever, and they've got them highlighted. And I'm looking down, and they're all 5555, and I'm like, I know this is because of like that being the fake one and blah blah blah, but it's so strange to have the detectives being there like not seeing the obvious pattern.
I have to point out. Wait, where did it go? It jumped out. Onder Huvil said, in the olden times we had to watch commercials when we wanted to watch cartoons. That was when I forgot. He goes, why didn't you just fast forward?
Oh gosh. Oh, kids.
Like he understands like recording something on a TiVo. His grandmother uses a TiVo, but yeah, the idea of like broadcast television is bizarre to him.
We have a
ads
couple
are
of
very novel.
We have a couple of old school gamers in the chat, including, of course, Brian Cortillo.
Oh, hey, Brian.
Who pointed out in olden times we had to color the numbers on our dice when we played D&D.
What?
I still have a set of those dice. Yeah. Geez, man. I had to color them a couple times because it would just wear down. And suddenly you couldn't roll 20s anymore. That needed to be fixed. I also remember when you had to get your mom to hang up the phone so that you could check your email. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Dial-up internet.
Oh, my God.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember, like, we had just, I want to say it was like a 2400 odd modem. Like it was numbers that made me just, looking back when I was thinking about modems, we're just like, how did we even do anything with this?
I love that scene in Hackers where they're all gathered around Angelina Jolie's laptop and just like lusting after its specs, and it was like, you know, it's got a 56.6K modem, and it's got it's got a killer refresh rate and all this other stuff, and it's just like, oh,
Now
yeah.
you're like,
well,
Like,
even the
my
original
iPhone
like,
1 didn't beat that. Like
the original Jurassic Park, like when they're trying to re-engage the electrical grid, there's so much that's like, oh, there's an icon on a desktop, and they're gonna click it. They're gonna click the icon, and I'm just like, wow, okay, this is not how the scene would be filmed now.
Yeah, the two most unrealistic things about Hackers: one, that hacking is really fun to watch, and two, that you'd want to watch the hacking and not just Angelina Jolie. So
or
those guys standing there like, oh, look at her computer, and she's like, dudes, what is this?
or Johnny Miller. You know, either one.
Yeah, no, totally reasonable. Or Keanu Reeves. And just saying. Yes,
Wasn't
back
it
in the
Hacker,
olden days, Keanu Reeves was in movies, and oh wait, sorry, that's still going on.
Well, I know what square I'm going to add to our next bingo round.
We all talk about
Olden times.
In the olden days.
In the olden
The
days.
olden
Yeah.
days.
Fair
In the
enough.
olden days, you'd go crazy waiting for the DJ to shut up so you could start recording the song on the radio.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, right.
We had these things called tapes.
Yes. Columbia
You
Record and
put them
Tape
into
Club.
tape players,
Oh,
and you'd
they
have
were
to
my-
flip them to the other side, and not all tapes would have a second side.
I wonder how many like random young viewers might have come through our stream, listen to these stories about olden days, and be like, "What the hell?"
You're like,
We're
oh,
out.
no.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, oh yeah, we've lost so many young viewers. Just like, they're like,
Yeah.
nope.
Well, we have another
Nope.
idol champion.
I'm embarrassed for
coming
them.
yet, So
Like, who are these people? Are they like 80?
This is like cringe. No, thank
All right,
you.
I
Later.
remembered another one for my son. We were watching Willy Wonka, and they got to the part where the guy's like, this computer is doing all this calculation of like which bar is the right bar or whatever, and he's like talking, and it's one of those like big giant fill the room computers from the olden times, And my son's watching, and I'm like, "Did you know that's a computer?" And he looks at me and goes, "That man is a computer." Like, this is the more logical assumption, not the giant box that filled the whole room. The person, that is the computer. Holy crap.
I need my 5 minutes before we actually start.
Yes, I was about to say that we have hit 25. We will be back in 5 minutes with the episode.
Don't go away.